Hey guys, I'm Matt Hernandez. Today we're at the softball field and I'm going to show you the difference between 4 different size modifiers and how they cast shadows. I recently had a workshop at my studio in Paducah, and one of the common questions at that one and at the other workshops that I've taught at before are when to use specific modifiers. So I thought this would be a great topic for a video. And I was taking team pictures for Paducah Tillman softball last week, so I thought that would be a great opportunity to use their catcher just to show you what the difference in like the hardness or softness of the light based on the size of the modifier, and also what kind of diffusion it has. We thought about doing a football player too, but this would really be true for anybody that has any kind of athlete that has like a mask on or even a hat, anything that's going to make a shadow, because it can make a big difference how big the modifier is, and then also the layers of diffusion as far as like what the shadow is going to look like on their face. So when you use harder modifiers, obviously it's going to be a lot more visible, but I think we've used, for this shoot specifically, we used 4 different ones just to show you example kind of going up the ladder. And there's 1 hard one and then 3 soft ones. So let's jump in and take a look real quick. So these are the 4 that we used. These are all FJ400s, and I just took just a shot of them up against an X-Drop Pro in the studio. So this is the deep focus reflector. It has no diffusion, so it's just a silver interior. The second size is a 24 Joel Grimes beauty dish, and it has the silver interior also, and then 1 layer of diffusion and the deflector plate. Then the next size up is the Manny Ortiz beauty dish. It's 36 inches. It also has a deflector plate and diffusion, but it has a white interior. And then the biggest is the 48-inch Octa, the Octa L, which has 2 layers of diffusion. No deflector plate, but it also has a silver interior. So those are the 4 that we compared. Now, it would have been ideal probably to use 4, because the Manny Ortiz is the only one that has a white interior. The other 3 are silver. So it probably would have been better to compare 4 silver interiors, but I don't have the silver Manny Ortiz. I do plan on getting it, I just don't have it yet. So, but I still think it's going to illustrate, it will show you a little bit of difference in the color cast and in the output too. So maybe it's good that we had 1 different one in there. So let's take a look at the behind the scenes that we took, just so you can see the setup. So here's the first setup. We used the deep focus reflector first. I wanted to go smallest to biggest, and you can't see the front of it here, but it doesn't have the diffusion on it, like I said. Got an FJ400. It is turned up to full power. I was at 1/6400th of a second shutter speed, so I wanted to use high-speed sync so I could underexpose the background, and I've got a video on that also if you guys want to check that out. We'll link it in the description and also put it up top. This is my go-to for the most output I can get with these lights. Because of the shape of it, it's going to focus the light in one area, and it's going to give you a high output just because of the inside of it. There's something like with the texture that makes it a little bit higher output, and then the silver also makes it more specular and gives it more power too. So that's going to give you the most bang for your buck as far as underexposing the sky in the background, or just the background in general. So I've got it angled at her face because obviously that's what you want, where you want the focus to be. Now the downfall to deep focus reflectors, because it's an advantage and it can be a disadvantage, because it focuses the light in one area, it is going to light that one area really well. If it's sunny outside, then the rest of the scene could, depending on your exposure, potentially be lit really well also, but, or have detail in it. If it's dark or cloudy, then everything else is going to be super dark. So you've got to keep that in mind. Now the sun was back behind her. You can see camera left. It's edge lighting her. So there is going to be some detail in the background of this photo. Had it been going down behind those trees behind her, then you wouldn't have really seen anything except where the light was hitting. You might see the little bit of detail in the shadows, but it would have made it a lot less interesting. So you have to take that into account. But also, if the sun's going down, then you don't need as much power either, because it's not going to be as hard to underexpose the background. So I will say one thing too. This is just an extra side tip. So I had my Westcott remote and the FJ400. You control the light from those remotes. I've had this happen before and didn't realize it, and I actually didn't realize it on this shoot either. This picture, and I'll show you in a second in Lightroom, it was clipping, which means the bottom half of the frame was dark and the light I wasn't getting the full flash, and I couldn't figure out why. I thought maybe it was because my shutter speed was so high, because I typically don't shoot with a shutter speed that high, and I thought, well, maybe they just clip at 66,400th of a second, because that is so fast. Then I got back in the studio and tried to recreate it right before we started filming this video, and I realized that's not what was going on. I actually didn't have high-speed sync turned on. So I had it on my remote, but for some reason the flash head didn't read it, because I could see, I tried to take a test shot of Eli, my assistant, just to see if that was what was going on, so I could tell everybody when we did the video. and it clipped at first, and I looked at the light and it said normal, NOR, which means that's not high-speed sync, although my camera shutter speed was the same as it was on this shoot, 6,400, and I was at f4. So then I realized that's what happened. So then I turned high-speed sync on again. I turned it off and turned it back on my remote. So then it switched to high-speed sync on the head. So they both read high-speed sync. It's a little H with the lightning bolt beside it. And once I did that, then there was no clipping. It went away. So sometimes your lights may not read the remote, like especially if you have more than one. So if you notice that one light has less power, because I went down in shutter speed too and tried it, and the clipping didn't happen, but it did have less power because high-speed sync gives you less power, right? Because the way that it works. That's the downfall to it. So even at full power, it's not going to be as bright as if you're shooting with your camera's natural sync speed. So then I went back up, and then it was fine. So, but if you're shooting with two lights and one of them is reading high-speed sync and the other one isn't, even if your shutter speed's up where it should be and your remote says high-speed sync, one of them's going to be darker than that one's going to be darker. So just keep that in mind, because that can happen every now and then. So this picture is going to be clipped when I show it to you, but that's not really the point. The point is her face in the shadow, so it's not a big deal. Okay, so let's take a look at that one first. So here's the zoomed out shot, and you can see where it's clipping down at the bottom. I opened up the shadows a little bit in Lightroom just so you can see, just so we can see a little bit more detail. And I'll show you the before. There's the raw, and then that's after I edited it. So you can see the light's focused on her face, and you can see there are some pretty harsh shadows from those bars on her face mask. And there's really no way around that. That's hard light, but that's why you're able to underexpose the background so much, because you have so much power, and there's no diffusion to give you that power, because when you diffuse light, then it makes it softer, but you also lose flash power. So that is the trade-off that you're going to have to go through there. All right, so while we're in here, there's the zoomed in picture, which we just zoomed in, so you already saw that. So now is the 24-inch beauty dish. So you can see the entire scene is significantly brighter with this one, and I went down to 1/800th of a second shutter speed. When you first glance at it, this looks like there's no shadows. There actually are. So if you go back to the other one, you can see where the face mask, because we kept the lights in the same spot. So let's go to the video real fast. So here's the second shot. So you can see the light is in the same spot, right? So it's going to give, so there's number one with the deep focus, and there's the 24-inch beauty dish. So you can see it's in the exact same spot. I didn't move the stand at all. So the light's hitting in the same spot. The shadows from her face mask are going to pretty much be in the same place unless she moves her head, which she didn't. So at first glance, this looks like that there's no shadows. There actually are a little bit, and you'll see that it's very subtle, but there are some. Because the modifier is smaller, it's bigger than the deep focus, so the shadows are going to be a little bit less prominent, but they are still going to be there. So it's going to be right here on her nose where it is on the deep focus. It's just spread out and not as dark, okay? So now let's go to the Manny Ortiz, which is the next one, and you can see right there, now that's a lot brighter on the bridge of her nose right there and on the end of it. See it right there and there. And you can see there's more power on this one too. My exposure, so my background's a little bit darker because the modifier is bigger. So it's softer light, but it's also more output, even though it's a white interior. So if this was a silver interior, Manny Ortiz beauty dish, I could have underexposed even more. Probably not a ton, but at least, I don't know, a third, 2/3, maybe a full stop. It just kind of depends. I've not tested that, so I'm not sure. But I do know that it is more specular, so it is going to give you a higher output. So plus it is bigger. So that's why I was able to underexpose a little bit. So we're at 1/1000th f4 on this one. And then the last one, Octa L, which is 48 inches, like I said before. So let's go full screen with this one. So I'm actually going to combine, I'm going to select all these and then go through them one at a time. So there's the Octa L, there's the Manny Ortiz, and then there is the 24-inch silver gel Grimes with diffusion, so you can see the nose is definitely darker there. And then we'll go back to the beginning. Whoop, I went too far there. Here is the deep focus. We can look at the zoomed out versions also. Deep focus, 24-inch beauty dish, 36-inch beauty dish, and 48-inch Octa. Okay, so the last three are much more similar than the deep focus, but the trade-off for that hard light is that it's going to let you underexpose the background significantly more than the other modifiers. That's the trade-off, is those shadows on her face though. Let's go take a look at the video one more time so like you can see the setup. So deep focus, 24-inch, 36-inch, and then there's the Octa L. right? So you can see that the bigger modifiers obviously take up more space. In this shot right here, it doesn't matter because it's a catcher and there's nobody else in the field. But in tight areas, I do have like an online senior class where I have somebody up against a wall with a tree pretty close to it, and I have to switch from the Octa L to the 24-inch Beauty Dish because it can fit in smaller places. So that's another example of, you know, when you might switch modifiers. Even though the light's going to be a little bit harder, it's going to be more directional in this, it's going to be a smaller area, faster fall off, that kind of thing, which may be what you're looking for. So it depends on the look also. These big modifiers like this are going to have softer light, but the light's going to go everywhere. So if you want it in a specific place, then you might go down a little bit, you know, even down to the 24. And then you can also use that deep focus reflector for portraits too. They do come with diffusion, like a diffusion sock. I don't ever do that, but maybe that'd be a good test too for a future video, so we'll see. But I hope this gives you an idea of the advantages of the deep focus, the disadvantages of it, when you might use it, and when you might use the other 3-size modifiers also. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you got a lot out of it. If you did, I'd really appreciate a like and a subscribe. Make sure you hit the bell so you know when we come out with new content. There's going to be a lot more to come. Thanks for watching.